About 50 years ago, an astronaut returning from the moon experienced things that he couldn't find a scientific explanation for. So, with some colleagues, he launched a new science focused on the mind and how it works in the body and across space and time. It's the field of Noetics, where the tools of modern science are used to help us understand how what we think and feel affects us and the world around us. Now, this is Dr. Ruth Miller's Noetic Moments from the studios of KXCR Community Radio in Florence, Oregon.
This is Noetic Moments, the show that explores what consciousness is, what it does, how it works, and how our lives could be much fuller if we understood it better. I am Ruth Miller, a longtime student of consciousness, cybernetics, and culture. And through this series of programs, I'm introducing some of the people whose work has defined this field of research, and I'm explaining some of their ideas and experiments. I'll also explore relevant news items and answer questions that you send to my email address, ruth@noeticmoments.org. And Noetic is spelled Noetic. Now, through these programs, we've learned that although the medical world defines consciousness as what we're aware of now, most of what goes on in the mind is not in our conscious awareness at all, but goes on in unconscious processes. From Jung and Freud and other early researchers, we learned that our minds can be thought of as having three aspects: our normal awareness, the conscious mind; what keeps our bodies going and includes our fears and beliefs about threats and dangers, the subconscious mind; and what connects us with our highest ideals and guides us in our actions, the superconscious mind. We learned that we can change our state of consciousness, so we're aware of different aspects of mind at different times. And then we learned that the brain modifies whatever sensory signals it receives to fit past patterns of experience, following a default network or structure in the brain. This means that we perceive, see, hear, taste, smell, and feel what our brains expect to experience based on the past. We learned that no one has yet been able to pinpoint how ideas and thoughts are formed in brain tissue, and we saw that our body often responds faster than nerve impulses or chemicals can travel, and before we're aware of it. Some experiments have even demonstrated that a person's mind continues to perceive and process for as much as several hours, even when the brain and heart are flatlined, and the person has been declared dead. Based on all of this, many scientists have come to accept that what we call mind is not the product of the electrochemical activity of the cells making up the brain, but is in fact the activity of a field that surrounds and permeates the brain and body. It's possible to measure at least a portion of this field as electromagnetic activity for several inches around the body in what some say is an egg shape, extending from below our knees to a few inches above our heads. Mind, then, is best understood as a field, a pattern of energy that exists whether the body is functioning or not, and permeates and develops with the body and the brain. This means that the brain is best understood as a receiver-transmitter, receiving messages from the mind and transmitting them to the body, and receiving messages from the organs and senses and transmitting them to the body as the subconscious mind. Some researchers are exploring how the two hemispheres of our brain are involved in the information we receive from the world through the left hemisphere of our cerebral cortex and from the mind through the right hemisphere of that cortex. We've learned that this field of mind affects energy and matter in a variety of ways. For example, experiments in quantum physics where the subatomic building blocks of the universe show up as energy or matter, depending on whether a mind is present to observe them. People's bodies and their pets having been observed to change when someone they're connected with turns attention their way. Individuals and the collective human mind changing the readouts from random number generators on computers and on the network run by the Global Consciousness Project. Now, every field is a unique pattern of vibration that's different from other fields, and they may vibrate along similar patterns, resonating with each other, so minds can affect each other across space and time. As a result, a growing number of scientists are seeing individual mind as part of a larger field, equating mind with the quantum or zero-point field, out of which all matter and energy arise. And some researchers are using the equations of quantum mechanics, relativity, and computer learning algorithms to describe the role of consciousness in the formation of matter in the universe. Together, these understandings help explain things like the law of attraction, how the world around us mirrors what our consciousness is focusing on, how we can access information through insight, intuition, and channeling, how dreams can affect the body and our larger consciousness, how music affects the brain and the body and connects us with other fields of mind, how we can enhance or slow down healing through our thoughts, emotions, and visualizations, and how the belief in a treatment can help a patient experience healing in the placebo effect, how remote viewing and telekinesis work, and how we can get into a state of flow in which the mind and the brain are in sync, maximizing our effectiveness. You can catch up on our past shows on our website, www.noeticmoments.org, where you'll also find links to the clips and books and authors that I mention. Now today, I thought we would take another look at this whole idea of a field that surrounds and permeates the body. It happens that the National Institutes of Health, in their collection of information about various forms of medical applications, has an article on the human energy field. In fact, the National Institute of Health has encouraged the use of the human biofield or the bioenergy field. In the National Library of Medicine, they talk about the human energy field as defined as a luminous field of energy that comprises a person, extends beyond the physical body, and is in a continuous mutual process with the environmental energy field. The article says it is a vital energy that is continuous whole and is recognized by its unique pattern. It is dynamic, creative, nonlinear, unpredictable, and flows in lower and higher frequencies. A balanced human energy field is characterized by flow, rhythm, symmetry, and gentle vibration. So, with the National Institute of Health exploring what a human energy field is, I thought we might do the same. And I found, of all things, a Russian physicist who's written a number of books and has described a number of experiments. This interview will be, I think, quite interesting for all of us.
When we talk about energy field, it's the skeleton of all other structures. And if we talk about embryos, the development of embryos, very well developed concept that is based on fields. The first, this concept was in embryogenesis, was developed by Alexander Gurevich in Russia. It was proposed by him, but he developed this as a theory. And in 1945, he published a book, Biological Field, The Biological Field, where he proposed his concept of embryogenesis. That is why this is quite developed idea, and it's well supported now, because we think that it's not just chemicals that allow from little cell to develop to the organism, but it is some force, some field that are based on, of course, organism of the mother, or in the egg. It is based on the structure of the whole egg, and this field allows organism to develop in grown-up system. So that is why we think that, and we believe, and we have some experiments also, like with this salamander experiment and many other, that it is really a field. I can give you a very clear example. We had very interesting, and we have, he's still alive, very interesting scientist in Russia, His name is Kanchan Jan. He is Chinese, living in Russia for all his life. And he did very interesting experiments. He took eggs of hen and goose, and he put them nearby. But the difference was, for example, goose eggs was in latest stage of development. Hen eggs chicken was just in early stage of development. And after some time, this goose was just coming out of the egg. It was normal goose. But when chicken came out, they had goose beak.
No.
Yes. Some of them goose paws.
Wow.
And it is a repeatable experiment, and vice versa, of course.
Right. Wow. That's absolutely mind-blowing. Okay, wow. How fast can our thoughts affect our energy field?
Immediately. Of course, this is immediate effect. It takes just less than millisecond. And not only energy field, it reflects all our system. And you know that in principle, our system responds before we have this third coming to our brain. Because I mean that we have our third in subconscious brain first, and only then it come to the hemispheres, to the frontal lobe. So it was shown that we respond before our third come to frontal lobe, before we understand this third. So it was, again, repeatable experiments.
Does the energy field affect thoughts?
Yes, of course, because we communicate with each other by energy field. We feel people, other people. We feel situation. The most known, of course, the gaze from the back. You see, it's very well known effect, and it's repeatable as well. It's proven, but there are many other situations.
That was Konstantin Korotkov being interviewed by Harun Rabbani at the incredible power of the human energy field. Just a few minutes from a longish interview that I thought you might enjoy, especially the story of putting immature chicken eggs next to mature, almost fully developed goose eggs, and having the chicken eggs coming out looking a bit like geese. Who knew? The energy field is not just about humans, and he is talking about that. He's saying the embryogenetic field, which is related to what Rupert Sheldrake drew on when he talks about the morphogenetic field, the field that surrounds an entity and guides how cells divide and separate into the various shapes and forms that make up the body. So there is a field, and apparently interspecies can overlap fields and affect the development of each other, which suggests that an embryo in the womb of a human being can be affected by the field of that human being, quite apart from any chemistry going on there. I have no idea how that's going to turn out as we do more and more implantation of embryos in uteri. So, the incredible power of the human energy field. It is what we have been calling mind. It permeates the body, it permeates the brain, it develops with the body and the brain. It overlaps with other fields, it resonates with other fields, and it guides the process by which the body-mind system develops, evolves, and shifts and changes. So, what that suggests is, so what we see here is that this idea is not limited to Western Europe, but it is pretty well established in Russia as well. And the Chinese experimenter that he was talking about, he said grew up in Russia, so it may not be going on in China as well, but I'm guessing perhaps it may. The other thing that he referred to is an experiment that Rupert Sheldrake has done and written up, the sense of being stared at. And Sheldrake did thousands of controlled experiments in which people were able to identify when they were being stared at or not. He also did experiments in which they were able to identify who was about to call them or who had called them before they picked it up. So there's another set of information supporting that who we are and what we are fields of informed energy that overlap and resonate with each other. Well, if you just tuned in, you are listening to Noetic Moments, a radio show exploring what consciousness is, how it works, and how our lives can be greatly enhanced as we understand it more fully. I'm Ruth Miller, your host, and that sound tells me it's time to look at a book, answer any questions you email to ruth@noeticmoments.org, and or maybe take a look at what's going on in the news that can help us understand the role our state of consciousness plays in our experience. Well, I thought today, since we are looking at the idea of the human energy field, we might want to look at what the National Institute of Health has published on the subject of energy medicine. This is a paper called Energy Medicine, Current Status and Future Perspectives by a PhD, Christina L. Ross. There is some concern expressed, but nonetheless, the article is here. And the opening lines are, current practices in allopathic medicine measure different types of energy that in the human body by using quantum field dynamics involved in nuclear medicine, radiology, and imaging diagnostics. I think we're all familiar with that. This is PET scans, MRIs, CT scans, etc. They're all looking at the energetic state of the body, the electrochemical signals, and the fields around those. And then she talks about based on those diagnoses, people use chemical and mechanical treatments. But she suggests that perhaps there is a motion-creating resonance. That is the resonance in the field that happens with vibration. And she says that this resonance is important to understanding how energy directs and maintains health in the human being. Energy medicine, EM, whether human touch or device-based, is the use of known energy fields to therapeutically assess and treat energy imbalances. The future of EM depends on the ability of allopathic medicine, that is our normal doctors, AMA medicine, to merge physics with biochemistry. Biophoton emissions, as well as signal transduction and cell signaling communication systems, are widely accepted in today's medicine. This technology can be expanded to include the existence of the human biofield, the human energy field, to better understand things. So that's from the abstract. And one of the things that she talks about is something called psychoneuroimmunology, which is something that I talk a lot about in my workshops on healing. And how is it that the energy field affects mind-body function? She talks about the current status, in which I touched on in the abstract, sharing the abstract. And then she says, there is a substantial body of evidence to suggest that perceptions of one's environment can be profoundly immune-enhancing or immune-suppressive. Stress decreases the body's lymphocytes, the white blood cells that help fight off infection. Lower lymphocyte levels increase the risk of viral infection. Leukocytes, that's white blood cells, not only modulate neuroendocrine peptide production, but are capable of producing stress-associated peptides and hormones previously thought to reside exclusively in specific areas of the body. She goes on talking about what energy medicine is, and she says, knowledge of the existence of the HEF, human energy field, is the first step to understanding integral physiology, which unites body, mind, and spirit to treat the entire human being, not just physiology. The HEF has been described as a complex dynamic of electromagnetic fields that include individual oscillating electrically charged moving particles in various ions, photons, and molecules, which create standing waves. Disturbances in the coherence of these energy patterns are indications of disease and aging. When these energy particles are exposed to energy medicine in the form of coherent energy patterns, and she gives examples of healing touch, polarity therapy, vibrational medicine, acupuncture, etc. She says when that happens, the disturbed resonant patterns return to their original, coherent, harmonic, and vibrational state, which she defines as homeostasis. So the paper goes on. Detailed clinical research in biophysical stimulation has identified specific cellular processes responding to electromagnetic forces. And then she talks about specifically how that works. And then she gives a summary of the various forms of energy medicine that are out there. She says that it's common to use an ohm meter to measure the voltage and convert ohms to volts using Ohm's laws to find frequencies that correspond to habitual organ function. So she says, assuming that the amperes are constant, because voltage and ohms change depending on the amp. So if you got a stable amperage, then she says we can look at frequency patterns associated with different organs. And basically they run from about 60 to about 80, variations within that. And then she goes on to various forms that look at brainwave states. And so if we look at, say, for example, a lot of people have heard about the alpha level. And this is a relaxed, calm, lucid state. You're not thinking, but you may have some imagery going on, light imagery. And in brainwave frequencies, that's 8 to 12. The alpha level is 8 to 12 hertz in brainwave frequencies. We go through the standard awake state, which is beta, into the peak performance state, which would be gamma. So beta would be that 12 to 30 range in hertz in brainwave frequencies, and then gamma is 30 and above. And then alpha, below alpha, if you've gone into kind of a trance state, then that would be theta, and that's 4 to 7 hertz. And hertz means cycles per second, by the way. And then to go deeper into a dreamless sleep or perhaps into a coma, you would be in delta, which is below 4 vibrations per second. One of the things that she talks about is the relationship between voltage, maintaining the appropriate levels of vibrations. She talks about the relationships between the various chakras and this field. If you're not familiar with the idea of chakra, from the Hindu tradition, there are several places along the spine where the energy field is brought together and then released into the body. So at the bottom of the spine, we have fields that affect, or a center that affects hips and legs and the abdomen. And as we move up the spine, we get into the chest and the heart area. And the heart chakra is considered the place where the emotional development and willingness to connect with others is happening. And we go up all the way to something called the crown, which is actually above the top of the head. And so she's even associating different frequencies with those energy connections, coming into the whole idea of psychoneuroimmunology, which has to do with the total frequencies of all these energy centers. I will have a link to this paper on the website, as usual, and you can chase it down if you wish. Well, my goodness, we've used our time for today already. We are out of time for today's show, but remember, you can continue the exploration on our website, www.noeticmoments.org, where there are links to all of these recordings and where you can find links to the titles and other resources we refer to on the show. And for those of you who have been tracking, I know we're way behind, but we're not as far behind as we were a few weeks ago, and we are catching up. So the archives are being brought up to date. If you have questions, you can use the comment form on the website to reach me, or you can just email to ruth@noeticmoments.org, and then we'll probably be able to get back to you very soon on the show. It's been wonderful having this time with you together, and I look forward to next time. Thanks for joining me here on Noetic Moments, recorded in the studios of KXCR Community Radio in Florence, Oregon. And have a wonderful week.
You've been listening to Dr. Ruth Miller's Noetic Moments. This program is produced in the studios of KXCR Community Radio in beautiful Florence, Oregon, supported by you, our listeners. Our theme music is Tumbling Planets, composed and performed by Jeff Lovejoy. To hear this program again or learn more about Noetic Sciences, search our website, www.noeticmoments.org.